Welcome back, fellas. This video is on an older series, Martian Successor Nadesico. This anime is rather old, but its story is still quite good. Another series that had a good mix of style and substance. The story takes place in a futuristic setting where Mars is being colonized and terraformed, but comes under attack from an alien invader. The military has no weapons that could repel their invasion, as they are technologically outgunned, and after a few short months, the entirety of Mars is now under their control. The military determines that they are a race of aliens from Jupiter and are reptilian in appearance. So, they are called the Jovian Lizards, while all seemed hopeless. A private company called Nergal has constructed an advanced warship that has the necessary capabilities to counter the Jovians and their advanced drone technology. The first being the ship's power source, a phase transition engine. Capable of generating near limitless energy, it's sort of similar to a black hole engine. The PT engine has another use in protecting the ships from energy projectiles through its distortion field, an invisible barrier that manipulates gravity waves to encapsulate the ship, as well as its main weapon, the gravity blast cannon. The distortion field could also be used offensively when paired with enough propulsion, such as how it's used in another new weapon developed by Nergal, a humanoid combat system called Esti Valis. The significance of these humanoid weapons becomes further pronounced as the series continues, as they are used to deal crippling blows in anti-Jovian operations. Nergal opts to select highly skilled civilians as their crew, since they want as little influence from the military as possible. This is where we are introduced to the main characters. The first being Akito Tenkawa, someone born from the Mars colonies that found his way to Earth without any recollection of how. He's more of a reluctant protagonist type character. While he doesn't like to fight and has a bit of a trauma about the Jovians, he still ends up doing what he has to, by becoming an impromptu Estivalis pilot replacement, where he has a surprising knack as a fighter, but didn't give up on his dream to be a professional chef. The next most important character is Eureka Misumaru, the captain of the Nadesico, and Akito's childhood friend. While she appears ditzy and naive, she possesses a keen situational awareness when in combat, and is quite talented as the captain of the Nadesico. Aside from them, there's a colorful cast of characters ranging from Akitos's fellow Estivalis pilots to a rather pervy but highly skilled chief mechanic, as well as the background characters that have little to no presence in the story of the show, but they make themselves known at certain junctions, such as when they hilariously almost mutinied because of stringent anti-relationship clauses in their Nurgle employee contract that they all didn't bother to read. The story starts off nice and soft-hearted with the assembly of the crew, where they prevented a Jovian attack before their official launch, as well as a small scuffle with the United Earth military that sought to seize the Nadesico because of its stellar performance against the Jovians, which was the first time there was a victory against them. They journey to Mars after some more scuffles with Jovian forces, thinking that they have finally obtained the power to fend off the invaders and avenge the fallen innocents on Mars, only to find out that the survivors that they so desperately hoped would be alive saw nothing of the sort. Not only do the Jovians possess a special type of technology called a tulip that acts as a gate for near instantaneous movement of large numbers of their forces to another location through an appropriately positioned tulip, but they also possess phase transition technology. It's also later found out that Nurgle did not create the PT technology on their own, but rather discovered it in ruins on Mars. This ties into some points in Akito's past, with his parents being renowned scientists that worked on deciphering the PT technology and replicating it, but ended up being casualties of the fighting with what to do with this technology as some parties wanted to monopolize it. It also leads to questions on why do the Jovians have similar technology? Did they discover it in different ruins closer to their home? Or did they invent it and wanted to reclaim Mars? Either way, in a desperate situation, the Nadesico fled Mars through a tulip, only to emerge months later in the middle of a battlefield. So it turns out space and time moves differently in a tulip portal unit. This also ends up raising questions of how the Jovians are able to properly command the tulips to go where they want to. But after returning to normal space, several key events happened. The first is that Nergal and the United Earth military reconciled their differences and are part of a combined front against the Jovians. A couple of new additions to the crew are introduced, but they have other reasons for being part of the Nadesco crew. They fall under the command of the same admiral that they initially were supposed to be working with before they ended up going against the military when they left Earth, and conducted a few lighthearted operations which were more for getting the viewer to have a bit more information on the key members of the crew and their relationship with each other. New mysteries are revealed, such as in a top-secret facility, Nergal was conducting teleportation experiments using the tulips, later called boson jumping, but was unsuccessful. They were successful in sending in inanimate objects through the tulips. But every experiment that involved a live human subject ended in failure as the human test subjects were all crushed when entering the tulip. However, the entire crew of the Nadesco and the ship itself didn't meet such a fate. So the new question is, why? After a while, the Jovians discovered that Earth was performing tests on boson jumping, and in order to stop them, deployed their new large humanoid mobile weapons that were capable of short-range boson jumping, making them quite a threat to the Nadesco and any other Earth force. But this is where Akito showed some guts and used another type of artifact called tulip crystals that were single-use boson jumping devices transported the Jovian robots off-world away from the Nadesco. Akito had one of these crystals hanging around his neck when he was on Mars and was the reason he ended up on Earth when he thought he would die and thought of his childhood friend. But this is where things take a different turn when one of the wreckage of a Jovian robot was being investigated. Its cockpit opened up, revealing a bunch of paraphernalia of a cartoon that Akito and his deceased friend liked. So, this reveals that the Jovians were not reptilian at all, but humans. Another turn in the story occurs where, after a tragic attack on a moon colony where Akito befriended a family that ended up losing one of its members as a result, Akito goes straight bloodthirsty mode to eliminate any Jovians, regardless of if they were human. Of course, some crew members couldn't really come to terms with this, causing changes to their relationships. It's later revealed that the Jovians were humans that were part of an opposing party that contested some of the policies the current United Earth government put into place. And after a small-scale civil war, where they lost against the current regime, they fled to Mars only to have tactical nuclear weapons used against them. They then fled to Jupiter to escape the government's pursuit, where, like Nergal, they came across an abandoned relic belonging to the same race that created the PT technology on Mars. This relic, an abandoned factory, became the Jovians' lifeline as it was chock full of advanced technology that was instrumental to them surviving and thriving on Jupiter. The insect drones, the manufacturing facilities for PT engines, the spaceships, the tulips, and other associated technologies. They could have more than saved themselves and developed a separate society based on their beliefs and ideals. But they chose to use these advanced technologies to declare war on Earth. It shows that even if you were granted opportunities for a fresh start, you would sometimes opt for revenge instead of moving past it. The story goes later on where Eureka and the crew attempted to make contact with some Jovian high command officials to try to broker a peace treaty, only to find out that the other side has no intention of stopping the war, as they think justice would be on their side. Or rather, that's what they want their fellow Jovians to believe. But it is just a vendetta for revenge. They lose some characters along the way, adding to the tragedy. Further in the series, they managed to explain why Akito and Eureka were capable of boson jumping when most other humans were not able to, which ties into the story quite well from a science fiction perspective. But I'll let you guys watch the series for the reason. No sense spoiling it, since it's kind of cool why they were able to do so. But the main point is that both sides are now at a stalemate since both sides are employing the same technology, and the tiebreaker would be a powerful relic left on Mars. A relic that manages the boson jumping network. Whoever controls this would essentially have won the war, as the advantage of this relic is immense. This is where the story reaches its climax with Akito and Nergal's president, Akatsuki, throwing down in their Estivalis units to claim the relic. But Akito manages to win and send the relic far away from both sides, begrudgingly causing Earth and Jovians to a ceasefire, with Eureka and Akito remaining on Mars after confessing their feelings for each other. There is a movie, but I think I'll review that in a separate video. To be honest, I wonder if it was trendy back then to have a time skip where the original series left off, and as if to just get it over with. They lazily use the first few minutes of the movie to fill in the viewer with loads of significant events that end up causing the viewer to get angry. Because it's not enough. They did this with Tekkaman Blade and other anime that were made in the 90s. It's annoying. I wasn't a huge fan of the movie. Normally, movies and sequels are supposed to add to the series. However, this movie took away from it. But in general, Martian's successor, Nadesico, is a great watch. I highly recommend. The pacing was especially of note. They went from lighthearted adventure comedy with a quirky cast of characters to a deep and heavy look into the intricacies of political strife, motivated conspiracies which cause a cycle of revenge. Where Akito wanted revenge against the Jovians for massacring innocent people on Mars that had nothing to do with what happened to the Jovians' predecessors. And the Jovians, who were granted a fortuitous encounter of advanced technology that should have been used to protect and safeguard their fellows. Think that they were vindicated in their actions of using these technological marvels as weapons, in the same way that the Earth government used weapons against their forebears. In a way, it's essentially you become that which you hate. A nice little lesson. I'll end the video here. Till next time. Bye.